Joe Biden has officially now dropped out of the US presidential race, the US presidential election campaign. The last we saw of him before his announcement was on the 17th of July, where we saw him. The White House did tell us that he had COVID at the time, but we saw him literally struggling to get in and out of his private security plane, being Air Force One. He literally struggled to get up and down the steps into and out of Air Force One. This is despite the fact that in the week and weeks prior, he told us repeatedly and he vowed repeatedly to stay on as the Democrat frontrunner and that he would run again to try win back election as the US president. This was all despite his recent string of gaffes, which the Donald Trump assassination attempt took some heat off Joe Biden. It removed some of the scrutiny of Joe Biden, which was mounting in the recent week and recent weeks. It took some of the heat off him despite his repeated gaffes, the most serious being, of course, calling President Zelensky, President Putin at the NATO summit, and his historically bad, historically terrible election debate performance in the head-to-head, the first head-to-head on CNN against Donald Trump. What's worrying is that these gaffes were actually just becoming a weekly occurrence. It was something to be expected. Donald Trump didn't even have to do anything. Joe Biden was practically shooting himself in the foot with his weekly performances, and it was actually cruel and rather sad to see someone struggle. That is the leader of the free world, the most important and most difficult job in the world, literally struggling to string a sentence together. And what confuses me is the fact that so many people continue to endorse him and the Democrats effectively try to cover him up, despite knowledge that conditions like this, neurological decline, only goes one way. Things don't really tend to get better, things only tend to get worse. And that is something we saw from Joe Biden. In the last 5 years, overall, he has declined slowly. But in the last year and a half, his decline of health and mental sharpness has been rapid, absolutely rapid. So why people continue to try and endorse him, especially Kamala Harris and all the Democrats try to cover up his health conditions, is a big shock to me, and I think it will play into Trump's campaign in the coming weeks. Now, moving on to Trump, I think, of course, depending on who the new Democrat candidate will be, it looks likely Joe Biden, of course, has endorsed Kamala Harris. It looks likely to be her. For him, Trump will feel that he is still the favorite. He is still the favorite with all the bookmakers, but there will be a new dynamic. Whoever it is, suddenly Trump is the old guy. And if it is Kamala Harris, which I'm going to run on the assumption that it is, I predicted before that Joe Biden wouldn't be the front runner, and I'm predicting now Kamala Harris will be. I think she has the benefits of incumbency. And why do I say that? Well, it's going to be a new dynamic. Suddenly, Trump is the old guy, and if he's standing against Kamala Harris, that is, of course, a woman, a black woman by that. And Trump has all these allegations of racism, and it's Kamala Harris, who was previously a prosecutor, and it's Harris, the black woman, against Trump, the old white guy. It's Harris, the previous occupation being a prosecutor, against the alleged suspect at the moment, Donald Trump. Of course, he has all these legal proceedings against him. We have seen a return to an angry Trump, a critical Trump, after his brief moments of reflection and attempts to unify the country after his assassination attempt. We've seen him return to his angry, critical, direct statements directed now at Biden and Harris, saying he should have never run, he should have stayed in his basement. Well, I think that is Trump rashly showing how disappointed he is. He obviously is not getting the head-to-head against Joe Biden that him and his campaign wanted. But for me, it will all depend on how the Democrats choose to appoint Kamala Harris, assuming it is her. Will it be, as Obama wants, a democratic, rigorous, thorough process, or will it be a simple appointment, a simple coronation, where Kamala Harris is effectively shoved in to try? You either go for party unity by directly appointing Kamala Harris with no real process, or you go through a process of legitimacy, as Barack Obama has called for, whereby there might be more infighting, which is, of course, could damage the Democrats' campaign, but at least it could be said that Kamala Harris is appointed democratically. I think if they don't go through a rigorous democratic process, that will play into the Trump campaign. They can say the Democrats are the party of vested interest, of elitism, whereby they don't have a proper running process or democratic process to appoint their candidates or frontrunners. Moving on to Kamala Harris, assuming it is her, as I say, I think she's got the benefits of incumbency. Her personal ratings are much worse than Joe Biden's. People said that Joe Biden would be more likely to beat Trump at the moment, and I think the more she's in the spotlight, the more she's on stage, the more people realize how massively divisive she really is. Of course, she's been in control of the terrible Democratic record on migration, the Democratic policies on migration, particularly concerning the southern border, which have been so divisive and so terrible. And it might explain why she was actually in the initial running contest, she was only the seventh choice for the Democrats, way behind Biden, way behind Gavin Newsom. Another thing, I don't think she's popular with who she needs to be popular with. If the Democrats are going to have any chance in this election, they need to win those blue collar swing voters back. And Kamala Harris is already popular with Democrat members, but she's not going to be the one to win over the blue collar swing voters, middle ground voters that Joe Biden was in 2020 because she is just so divisive. And I think, as I say, she's going to lose those swing states. People say she's going to be the first black female president. Well, in my opinion, that shouldn't matter. We should appoint on merit and merit only. We shouldn't be appointing and alleviating people based on the color of their skin. We should not judge anyone or anything by the color of their skin, but purely by the content of their character and their ability and likelihood of success. Besides, it's confusing because I think JD Vance is actually the real American dream. He is a walking representation, a walking example of the real, true American dream. He successful entrepreneur, successful businessman, having been a Royal Marine. So I don't think that card's going to work for the Democrats, and nor do I think it should. My final thing that I'll leave you with is, wow, so 107 days until the US election. Still plenty of time, really, but it's of course more time than than it's a lot more. It's a lot longer than the UK election campaign is. 107 days, lots of time, but so much damage has been done, so much damage has been dealt that I think it is probably still too little, too late for the Democrats.